Spoiler alert, this podcast is all about happiness. What gave it away? I'm Fayon Dixon and welcome to Happy Talk. Each week, I will be introducing you to someone that I share a happy connection with. I just believe that we all have happy stories, happy events, and we sit on them. We never share them. So this is the platform for doing it. I work as a presenter, broadcaster, events host. I work with stroke survivors. I have my own children's radio show. And I've been really lucky in the last 20 years to do work where I just ooze happiness. Yeah, I'm one of those people. My cup is eternally overflowing. Sit back, enjoy. It's time for Happy Talk. Hello and welcome to another Happy Talk with me, Fayon Dixon. Good news, good guests, no grief. Sitting by my side is an old friend. Yes, it's you. It's Phil Dave. Hi, Phil.
Oh, hi, Fayon. How are you?
Not be so formal. How long have we been calling each other PD and FD?
A very, very long time. Well, of course, I used to call you FC.
Yes, you did.
But let's go with FD for a long time. It's been.
Yeah, well, yeah.
A great number of many happy messages have been sent back and forward with those two signatures signed. So.
Yeah, because I used to be Fayon Cottrell, of course, and I don't know. We didn't organize this thing that we were going to call each other that. We just kind of fell into it, didn't we? And it's been like that forever. So that's the way we roll. So, PD, before we get into the whole happy talk and find out more about you and our relationship,
I was just thinking, FD. Technically speaking, based on us talking about FD and PD and the fact that it started this podcast, does that make that an initial discussion? Yeah, and yet we've been friends all this time. I don't know how on earth she puts up with it.
Because I love it. Well, what I do at the start of my podcast is I share some positive news. There is just so much positive news out there, and I just want to make sure that on my podcast, I kick off with it and everybody gets to hear it. So I source my positive news from a news source called News from the Rooftop, and you can take a look at it on Instagram. They are an incredible organization who focus on positive campaigns, issues that are out there in the world where they can really help make a difference. And this is what I love. And I've shared so much great news from them reporting about what's going on around the world. I am pleased to report some news about something that's happening to them. So I'm just going to share this with you, PD, if that's okay.
I'm all ears.
This is great news. News from the Rooftop have now become a CIC, a community interest company. This is super, super news. Lots of people know this already, that the Campaign Collective launched as a social enterprise in 2018. And it was to highlight all this positive news and to just get through all the gloomy mainstream news that seems to hit the highlight, the actual headlines. They wanted to make sure that they got all this positive news out. So just last week, they are proud to announce that they have now transformed into this independent community interest company. And so that means they can expand their mission to help deliver training and give advice to members of the public to empower them and to give them a stronger voice. So this is absolutely incredible news because that means that they'll be getting some funding and they can really stretch their not just their social engagement, but everything will just get bigger and better. So I'm just super, super happy for these guys. I know you've not heard of them so far, but as a man who deals with news, because let me give you your official welcome, Phil Dave, broadcaster, producer. You know all about news, don't you?
I might have stumbled across the news agenda once or twice in my career, yes. And I can't deny it's a bit overwhelming, especially with doom and gloom. So any platform that expands on the happier side of things, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. Do check them out on Instagram. They are just doing so much brilliant, brilliant stuff. I've reported on so many great initiatives. I'm really proud of Simon Francis and the team for getting this off the ground in this way.
Well,
So,
congrats to them.
yeah, totally, totally. So, PD, I also like to share happy memories that I have with my guests. I have lots of connections with people, and on these podcasts, I like to share some of them. And the one that I want to share first of all is the one that we met at.
What a
So,
memory you've got. Wow.
well, you and I have been friends for over 15, maybe even 17 years. It's the numbers are racking up. It's a long time. And
I think it is around. It probably feels like 17 years to you, but I believe it is nearer 15,
is
14,
it
15
nearer
years, if my
15?
memory serves me.
I bet it is as well. So I answered an application that I saw for a presenter to do a podcast around London. Then, I mean, listen, and when I applied for it, it was you who I met with. And it was just incredible because you were so young. You were super young. So in, I mean, I'm enthusiastic, but I'd met my match. You were so
Never.
enthusiastic. You
Never.
were, listen, you were on the ball. You were on point. You had so many ideas. And I was just like, wow, this guy. And it was just such a wonderful thing to do because you swept us off. Me, you were working with, what was the lady's name that you were with?
Let's name check her. It's the lovely Kimberly Howie, who I used to co-present a program with. I have no idea how many years ago, but on a community radio station. And Kimberly and I worked on the show together. She stems from Australia. Sadly for me, she moved back there a few years ago, but don't get me wrong, still roughly in touch once in a while. But while she was living in London, she and I worked so well together that as our time on this particular community station came to an end, we had this notion that we wanted to try and carry it on somehow. And we certainly didn't have the funding to start up our own station. But what we thought about is that it was very up and coming to talk about podcasts. In fact, it was so new that most people didn't even know what a podcast was in those days. And we thought, well, look, let's go for it. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And at the time, can you believe this? If you think this is how far podcasts have come over the last however many years, there was pretty much no podcast about life in London.
Wow.
That's how new podcasting was. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if we got in on that now? And we were one of the first to do it. So we decided to come up with this podcast that would look at life and culture and communities within London, how London thrives, how it works. And we just simply wanted to call it the London Pod.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. So we put a little advert out there on a website called Media UK, which is still absolutely going. It's still an industry organization that gives news to all people who work in radio and media. Funnily enough, they don't really post much in the way of jobs anymore, sadly, but they did do back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did do back in the day. But we put an advert out there saying that we were looking for enthusiastic London-based presenters who could talk about their capital city, what it means to them, go out there, do some reporting, that kind of thing. And my goodness me, we were inundated. But there were one or two who stood out, and one in particular, someone who just was bursting with energy, with enthusiasm, with amazing hair that I am still to this day, even though I know you don't have it anymore, but I'm still so jealous of the hair. And her name, Fayon Dixon. And I thought, oh, hello. And then, yes, said, okay, come along. We're going to have a little group meeting. Do you remember where that group? I've got a feeling that meeting is in West Hampstead somewhere.
Yeah.
Was it? Do you remember that?
It was in
Yes.
West Hampstead. And who's our guy with the massive afro?
Oh, James Sherwood, I think his name.
Sherwood. Yeah. We all met up and it was all very professional. I just loved it. I like a slick operation. And, you assigned us, I think the first place we went to Portobello Market. Do you remember?
Oh my goodness, yes. Because I'd actually forgotten that we'd started recording bits for it. Sadly, the podcast never took off.
Yeah.
which was a great shame. But that in those days, it was a lot harder to get podcasts published.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to do a podcast, you subscribe to the Apple website or whatever your podcast platform is.
Yeah.
They review it, and then they kind of say yes pretty much within 24 hours.
Yeah.
In those days, it was almost impossible. I
Well,
mean, you had to host
there were no
it, and
apps. There was no app.
yeah,
We hadn't, apps had not been born, so
yeah, it was
we
very, very hard doing
were
podcasts then. So
totally ahead of
sadly, it
your
never took
time.
off.
You were
But
totally ahead of your time. That's what it was. But that did not stop you. And it didn't stop us becoming really good friends. It was just like, I'm drawn to certain people. And you were somebody that I just really wanted to be friends with. And
likewise.
the next happy memory, thank you. The next happy
But
memory.
can I just say, it makes such a refreshing change from people saying they just couldn't get rid of me. So I'm really pleased about that. So thank you.
Oh, you'll never get rid of me, PD. No, 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 no. We're friends forever. No, the next happy memory. I mean, there's a few here. My face has started rising. It's smiling already. Oh gosh, it hurts.
I have no idea what you're thinking, but I can see that you're turning almost that shade of embarrassment. I'm thinking, uh-oh, what now? So
No. It's not that. It's not that. It's just, you remember when we did on FM together?
oh yes, I remember on FM. So that, I think, just as background to anyone who I'm fairly sure that although the masses, of course, would have heard of the Breakfast Show with Fayon and Phil on FM, which that was never easy to say, was it? With Fayon and Phil on FM. Anyway, let's not dwell on that. But on FM was a community station based in West London, in Hammersmith, I think it was. And we did the Breakfast Show there for a good little run, which was interesting. I remember that very well.
Oh my gosh, the fun we would have. So I can't remember exactly what floor we were on, but we had to go up in a lift to get up to our studio. And, we just weren't content with interviewing people, just, going out and get a recording, We wanted to be in the masses. We wanted to be on the street. And, recording equipment wasn't all that back then. But
we just wanted to double our audience. That's all it was.
We leap out, and we were up early. I think we started at, it was 6 or 5 or something.
Oh, yeah, it was super early time. Because I know that I always used to catch the first train to get in. I know that much. So, and at the time I was living in Stanmore in northwest London, so the journey was not easy via train to get there. So, and there was nowhere to park. Even in those days, there was nowhere to park. So it was definitely train was the way forward. But
no, we've always been, it was two of us. We've always been early risers, and so literally we were like, and we were on. And the people we would interview were just brilliant. We just go and poke our, microphones in front of people's faces, and it was just brilliant. We just had so much fun, and we'd have these great shows. And I forget who the boss was now, but we never used to hear a word from him. He just used to let us get on with it.
So, well, I think there was a chap called Pete who was the manager, and I remember he was very, very chilled, but the actual boss was and I can't remember her surname, which is probably a good thing because I don't want to annoy her, but her name was Nicola, who was the number one of the station.
Okay.
And she was very old school BBC. I remember that. So she did not care very much for our presentation style because we were a little erring on the side of funky, shall we say, where even though we were broadcastable, neither of us, to the best of my knowledge, have ever used profundity or anything like that on air, but even so, it was still a little bit cutting edge, I think.
Yeah. And we were ahead of our time. There was, I mean, they want, in a breakfast show, I believe there's got to be a lot of energy. Yeah. And you and I we brought our energy in bucket loads, and we were just way out there. And I think it was just a bit way out for her. I think it was just a bit way out.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I might have struggled with just a little bit was the daily on-air yoga sessions. And I'm not going to lie, that they were a particular challenge for me because I am about as bendy as a plank of wood. So to have to start sort of coming up with the downward dog and the mushroom crouch and stuff like that. I mean, you'd never seen anything like it. I think I just used to press the button and play the music and then pretty much learn from the master that is you.
It was great because that's when I first got into Bikram yoga, and I was doing Bikram all over London. So wherever my jobs were, I had a TV job in Kentish Town, and there was a studio there. So I had another class when I started with another TV production company in Chiswick. So I went there. Then I moved to another job, and that was in Old Street. And I literally was Bikram yogaing all over the place. And I mean, I was going like 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days, and I needed to pass it on. So yeah, we would have this morning yoga session, and yeah, not often did you ever. No, you never got involved. You just pressed the buttons and watched me go, didn't you?
Well, I mean, call me old fashioned, but I didn't really want to walk away from a radio program with a sore arm. And I hadn't done to that date. And I didn't really see a point of breaking the habit of a lifetime. But yet it was quite impressive how flexible that you have to be able to take part in yoga.
No, it's all about the breath, all about the breath. Which brings me on to my next thing, which was when I had to take a really deep breath. It's still on FM even. It's still on FM. It was
you can see why the show didn't last, can't you?
Listen, we had to go forward, backwards. Was it Fayon and Phil on? We were Phil on, we were Fayon, we were all over the place. But it was my 41st birthday. And
to which I say impossible, because surely that's only been recently.
Well, if we could travel through time. And we had another radio show on my birthday. And anybody who knows me knows that I celebrate my birthday big time. There is an agenda, there is a plan. I'm celebrating in many places on the day, and I spread it out over weeks. And if there is a 0 in my birthday, it is months. Life was given to me, and I like to celebrate it. It's as simple as that. So yep. I rocked up to the On FM studios, and you, Phil, had baked me a cake, and you had brought champagne.
And yeah.
Do you remember? You baked a cake. I was just...
Did I actually bake it?
You told me you did. You know how gullible I am, so I believe.
No, I hope I did, because I do enjoy cooking from time to time, but I just don't know I don't remember being that confident with cooking in those days. But okay, maybe I did.
You said you baked it, and it was...
Well, look, you're still here, so that's what counts. So I didn't do anything terrible to you, so that's something.
And I can still remember, because I took pictures of us, and they were just us wacky, just honestly, there's pictures of us. We're not even still. I think we're dancing. And we've had a couple of glasses of this champagne.
Oh no.
It's morning. It's like, daybreak, we've had the cake, and I was wearing a pink dress. I remember I was wearing a pink dress, and I had my hair was sort of like in a pixie cut. It was like in a pixie cut, and you had your spiky sort of hair going on, and you're wearing a suit. Oh my gosh, the two of us, we looked incredible.
If I say, may my hair rest in pieces, but anyway, never mind.
Well, we've both gone for a slicker cut since then. But
I know, actually, to be fair, it has been a fair few years since you've had longer hair than me. So I'm quite excited by being back on air with you for the first time, since your hair has been longer than mine now. So that's something.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, if this podcast was happening last year, I'd have been bald. Because remember, I took it right off. I took it all off. But, I have so many happy memories of you, but that was a great start to my day. I mean, I started the day on champagne, and, I went on to 3 other venues through my birthday, and it was later that night that I met my husband. And
yes, of course. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I forgot, because you did tell me that that's what happened.
Yes. Wow. So I didn't realize I was going to be meeting the man. I've started off the day with the man of my dreams, and I ended it with my life partner. Yeah.
Good Lord. Well, there you go. I mean, I don't know how to respond to that.
A compliment. Take that compliment, Phil. Take that compliment.
Oh, I've gone a shade of tomato if you're listening to this. Wow. Anyway.
Well, good for everybody, really, because you can view my podcast And you can also listen to it on Spotify. So you will be able to see Phil going a lovely shade of red. Okay, so it's now time for show and tell. What have you got to show me?
Well, I have to tell you, first of all, that I am very excited that all of these years later, that the budget remains exactly the same for the idents and the jingles. So well done. I'm really pleased about that. Now, as far as the... I'm in so much trouble. Thank goodness this is over Zoom. Anyway, so for show and tell, you said to me, the brief was very simple. You said something that you look at that just makes you happy. And I thought, now, apart from my wallet, what else is there? So that was a joke, by the way. But for me, I did think about this, and the first thing that came to mind, should I just give you a brief rundown first, or should I just show you? Because
whatever you like.
Okay, so I think there needs to be a little bit of background here first. But the item, actually, no, let me show you. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to show you. Right, it is this little bear here. Okay, now this is going to sound really odd, so bear with me if there's no pun intended. But anyway, so you've got this little bear here. So for you who can't see it and you're listening to this, it's a very small, it sort of fits in the palm of your hand, maroon colored bear. Right, now the reason why it's this item is because this is not going to sound very happy at first, but again, just bear with it. I lost my grandmothers at about the age of 15. Now, I was very close to my grandmothers. I've learned many things from both of them. And they died within 5 months of each other. So it was a really, really rough year, to say the least. But it was also the year that I was getting ready for my GCSEs. Now, anyone who knows me, and Fayon, I'm fairly sure that you can vouch for the truth in this statement. I am not in the least bit academic. I can talk until the cows come home, but I can't do academia to save my life. Anyway, I was already struggling prepping for the GCSEs, so wasn't really looking forward to it. But then to suffer the bereavements as well wasn't really that great. My mother, being the very thoughtful person that she is, decided that she was going to buy me a little good luck mascot. And this is the mascot she got me. And I said, well, it's really lovely, but I've never had an interest in teddy bears before, to the best of my knowledge. So was there any reason that you chose this? And I said, oh, I can see the reason why you chose it. She said, what are you talking about? Anyway, one of my grandmothers, her name was Sylvia Ross, but no one called her Sylvia. Everyone called her Tibby. And I've no idea why, but that was just a nickname that she was given for years. And I always knew her as Grandma Tibby or Grandma Tibbs. And this bear has a label attached to it. Now, bearing in mind her name was Tibby Ross, have a look at this label. It says Russ, and the name is Tibby. So Tibby Russ instead of Tibby, Tibby, Ross, Ross.
But your mum didn't notice. Your mum didn't notice that.
She didn't see the label. She didn't see the label. So I said, now I know why you got it. She said, what are you talking about? As soon as I showed her, she burst into tears and she said, I did not see that. I had no idea that's what this bear was called. So I just, ever since then, I have seen this as a token, a symbol that one of my grandmothers is looking down on me on everything that I do. And it doesn't go very far from my side. So it lives in my room. And it doesn't go very far. It might always be on display, because I've got to be honest, maroon doesn't go with the decor, if I'm honest with you. But even
always
so,
stylish, always so stylish.
But even so that's why. So, and don't get me wrong, I mean, obviously there are other things that reminds me of other relatives who have been and gone, including my other grandmother. But I just thought I can't get over the coincidence of that. And even though I know that there are many people out there who don't believe in the afterlife and don't believe that there's anything thereafter, but I am quite spiritual, and I have to cling on to the fact that there is something after this world, because otherwise why bother? So if it keeps me happy and it keeps me positive, well, I'm not doing any harm to anyone. So I hope that you'll bear with me if you don't believe in that. But even so, I thought, I cannot believe the coincidence around that. And every time I look at it, I think of my grandmother, I think of my grandmothers actually in the plural. And it just, even though it was a very sad time it was given to me, just puts a smile on my face, because it's reassuring, you know, it's almost like a hand on the shoulder that you can visualize that they are there behind you. And yeah, so that's my show and tell item.
Oh, it's brilliant, Phil. It's absolutely brilliant. And I am a massive fan of serendipity, fate, all of those things, and the reasons why things happen. And
Oh, totally.
oh gosh, I just believe, definitely, and I shout about this a lot. I believe that we are here for a very unique mission. All of us on earth have very unique missions. Some of us get to realize our mission while we're, here, and some of us get a glimpse of our mission. Some of us never know what our mission is. They have, what is my purpose? And I feel that you come back into another life. You come back again to keep going on this mission. And I believe, and some people might disagree with me on this, and that's absolutely fine. I believe that you are reborn in the company of your friends. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I believe that I've always known you lifetime after lifetime, but you're
Oh,
different.
poor you.
Why I can't shake you up. But I'm
I'm so
reborn.
sorry.
I'm reborn in this company, and that's, I mean, all the people like good, bad, and different, anybody that I know, but they're always different people in my life. So in my last life, you could have been my brother, for instance, or you could have been a work colleague or whatever, instead of PD, my good friend. So but yeah, I just believe in mission, and I believe in serendipity, and that we are here, and certain things happen to you because they are supposed to, because there's something that you need to learn, and that's good and bad.
So totally. I mean, FD, you and I have discussed, and I know that this is happy talk and it's not necessarily about religion and things like that, but you and I both have a faith of which that sort of we follow our respective faiths, and mine happens to be Judaism. And part of Judaism is accepting that life will become what it will become. Although sort of the powers that be gave us the freedom of choice, the outcome of that choice has already been decided, if you see what I mean. So, and there is actually a word for it. There's a word for it in Yiddish, which, of course, to those who don't know what Yiddish is, it's an ancient sort of dialect that was spoken amongst Jewish people, primarily on the continent of Europe when they were sort of there originally. And it was a combination of Hebrew and German. And the word is beshert. And beshert means, not literally translated, but its meaning is what will be, will be. It's beshert. It's meant to be. And I'm a huge believer in that. Such a great believer, because exactly the same way as something as simple as putting out that advert all those years ago, talking about the London podcast, even though the podcast never got off the ground. I mean, what better thing to come out of it than our friendship, frankly?
Absolutely right. And you see, it's like everything is on this sort of journey. Yeah, every sort of action that you take is on its way, to a journey. And we were supposed to meet. It's as simple as that. We're supposed to meet, and the stars aligned, and it happened at that time. And just like how I met my husband, just like how I met other good friends, how it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, and you can make a whole podcast. I'm sure there is a podcast out there about serendipity and meetings and stuff like that. But I have to just thank you for not just being my friend, but you've been such a great supporter of me. You really, really have. And whenever you've seen an opportunity that I can get in on, you've opened the cat flap, as I like to call it, and let me in. BBC Radio London, Talk Radio. Because of you, I'm in these establishments. So I cannot thank you enough for just being so supportive of me.
I don't want thanks, because first and foremost, I know
I can't take it back. I can't take it back.
But what I mean is that I don't do it for thanks. I know that you're thankful, because otherwise I wouldn't do it. If you say, I'd never go out of my way for anybody who I didn't think would go out of their way for me, if you see what I mean. I'm a great believer that it's a two-way street, but without wanting to bore people too much who aren't in radio and media, just for the record, it's a very small industry. There may be loads of radio stations out there, but very scarcely will you go from one radio station to the next where you're only ever one person away from the next person, if you see what I mean, at another radio station. So you've got to be really, really careful, because they always say, and it's a bit cliche, but it's so true, be nice to those on the way up, because you never know them. You'll never know when you need them on the way down. And it is so true, because we do all cross over time and time again. So for me, it was only ever about doing what I do, which is helping those who I know, not I hope would help me, because that almost sounds almost a bit presumptuous, but those who I know would do the same for me if the situation was reversed. And it's a part and parcel of just sort of recognizing that radio is, by and large, with the exception of one or two bad apples, one big happy family. And we have to stick together, because it is, frankly, it's a brutal industry.
Yeah, we will get our show again. It won't be on FM. Oh no.
Yeah, who knows, one day. But still, look, you know what, even if not, how lucky have we been with what we've done to date? Even if nothing more than this happens.
Let me just to your horn for a second, because, you know, as a very young producer, you know, I've watched you work at BBC Radio London, and nothing phases you. And what I love about you is you're always you're dressed crisp. Always crisp.
The jacket's off. I'm working from home today. Can you tell? I'm scruffing it. I'm so sorry.
I know, but you've still got your cravat on. I love that so much. You know, you are a man who likes a fedora. You've got gorgeous hats. You've got amazing hats and beautiful overcoats. And, you know, you are somebody who stands out. You know, when we meet after we've done our talk radio bit at the crack of dawn and we go for breakfast, literally hammering on doors to get people to open.
I want food.
We want food. We've been up since 3. Yeah. And you are standing out for absolutely everyone. And you never let that slip. So even when you're in the studio, you're out on the street. So where do you get your style from?
Well, some might say a skip, but I mean, but well, okay. So first and foremost, I might just throw in here, this is the BBC in me, that just so you know, regrettably, since I have actually sort of pretty much ended my association with BBC Radio London, not through any other reason that I'm a freelancer and the BBC just don't have much of a need for freelancers at the moment. So before anyone starts sort of writing in saying, oh, he's very opinionated for someone who works on the BBC, none of that, please. I am now technically free from the BBC. But even so, that's a one side. To answer your question as far as the what you very flatteringly call style, I guess that stems from knowing that, okay, well, let's be honest here. I don't really have a lot that's unique about me in terms of that born with a plum in the mouth in terms of the way I speak, and that I am a guy, and I am of British descent by and large. I mean, okay, my religion is something separate, but the point is, there are plenty of people like me in the media already, especially as I started at a time when diversity wasn't really a thing. I mean, it was certainly getting to where we are now, but it wasn't as good. And so I guess that I was always worried that I wouldn't stand out because, well, it's just, okay, can we be honest here? Just another white British bloke, you know? So what was going to be different? Anyway, so I thought, well, I've got to do something to make me look a bit different. It can't just be that I rely on sounding like I'm escapee of the royal family. And I thought about the hair, first of all. The hair was where it started. Now, I know you wouldn't know this from looking at me now, but to anyone who has never seen me before, and I would guess that's the majority, because that's usually the way it goes. But if you didn't, back in the day, I used to have hair that could only be described as the love child of Gary Rhodes and well, kind of Grace Kelly, if I'm honest. I don't mean Grace Kelly. Do I mean Grace Kelly? It was Grace. I mean
No.
Grace.
Jones.
Grace Jones. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. So it was much more about sort of the box cuts, you know, so straight up spiky hair. That was where it was at. And anyway, I had that for years, but unfortunately time is quite cruel to hair, as most blokes will tell you. So I couldn't really do that anymore, hence that the hair has been shaved. But as far as the clothes were concerned, I always remember I've always had a bit of a penchant for serial dramas, and in particular period serial dramas as well. So if you look at something like Downton Abbey, or if you look at, there's been loads of examples on BBC and on ITV, just things from years ago. Okay, I don't need to sit here listing all of them. You know what I'm talking about. And I always admired the way that, particularly men, not so much women, fun enough, because I imagine that women back in the day were seriously uncomfortable in the name of in the name of just trying to save face.
Yeah.
And even now, I believe there's an element of it, but you know, we don't need to go into that so much. But the point is that certainly back in the day, that women almost had to dress to impress and to stand by their man. And I don't care very much for that, but I certainly admired the way that men used to dress back in the day. And in particular, so I'm much more erring towards the sort of the Dickensian era. So when they used to have sort of the top hats going on, the long overcoats going on, the cravats,
cane, the walking cane.
The walking cane. I do have one of the canes.
Have the cane. How many walking canes do you have?
Oh, just the one. I don't think, because I'm not being funny, but if you walk down the street with that now, people think it's a lethal weapon, which is very sad. Anyway, so the point was, as far as the style was concerned, is that I always used to look on and really admire the way they dressed. And in particular with the cravats, this is much more the way cravats were worn around, say, the 40s and the 50s, which is, for those who can't see, it's the cravat that's sort of folded in half and then done through a slip knot around directly onto the neck. Whereas, of course, back in the more Dickensian era, the shirt collar would be on the inside, right up to the neck, with the collar upright, and the cravat would have been wrapped around a couple of times around the shirt. Now, I personally much prefer that, but I was understandably getting some very strange looks when I wore it like that. So I thought, do you know what? I can't live in an era that is so bygone that even our grandparents don't remember it. So I thought, better just behave myself. And so that's when I started dumbing it down.
Oh, dumbing down. No, I think you need to dumb up. You need to dumb up. I think for special occasions, you should definitely go collar. I'm feeling like a whole sort of Count Dracula kind of collar style, you know.
Yeah, but isn't it funny though? But you say Count Dracula, but isn't it funny that people remember characters like Count Dracula and almost sort of evil characters from films as the ones who have that style still? I don't consider myself as evil. I'm sure there are people who tell me otherwise, but it's just that I admired it from a time when gentlemen used to wear it as standard. You know, they wouldn't even leave the house. Could you imagine? They wouldn't even leave the house without a hat. Seriously.
Yeah, love that. Absolutely love. They say it. You got it. If you want to get ahead, get a hat. You know, I mean, I've got hats galore, and especially since, you know, sort of going from the shaven bald head to growing. But I mean, I've got berets galore, every color of the rainbow, got all the hats. Love a hat, PD. I do.
There are actually very few hats that I can get away with, because my problem is that the shape of my face is probably less so now, because it used to be, sadly, used to be a little more gaunt. I've filled out a bit now, but back in the days when I was actually thin, then I could never really wear certain hats, and for some reason it was only a fedora that I recognized sort of just about suited me. But bowler hat, forget it. I could never wear bowlers or anything like that. Or as for those, what are they called? The ones that they wear at Harrow School, boaters. Oh, forget it. The boater, forget that. No way.
No. Nobody should wear a boater. Just saying.
I love the boaters. I can't wear it because it doesn't suit me, but I love them.
No, they don't seem like they're on your head properly. They're just kind of perch, you know, like a gust of wind will just blow them off.
Either that or it look more, I think, well, that's why there's summer hats, of course, is because you can't wear them in winter because they'd blow away. Yeah. But for me, the boater looked a little bit like a picnic basket that the person who wove it couldn't be bothered to finish.
It's true. Before we finish, I must ask you about current projects that you're on, because you do have a brilliant radio show of your own, don't you? And I just want you to give that a little plug if you want. Not that this
Thank
show's
you.
about
Well,
plugging, but you know.
well, thank you. It's very kind. I am nowadays, I found myself sort of working more in radio that looks at mental health and well-being. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily because I have been in a position myself. I think we all have experiences with good days and bad days, and with our mental health exactly the same way we all have physical health, we all have mental health as well. The difference is, if we break a leg, we talk about it.
Mm,
If we break our emotions, we don't talk about it. That's the
mhm.
biggest difference.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that with this particular program, I work with a rather well-known chap by the name of Russ Kane. And to those who remember the name but can't think why, Russ Kane was best known as being the flying eye on the Capital Breakfast Show. And it was actually him and someone else, a chap called Howard Jameson, who started both men's radio station and women's radio station. Now, Russ and I work on a program together on men's radio, funnily enough. And I think, as much as I hate the expression, because it's an Americanism, and no offense to our transatlantic cousins, they don't half come out with twaddle sometimes, but it's that we just shoot the breeze is the best way of describing it. So
It's a
in other
great
words,
term. I love it.
we don't necessarily have any agenda, but what we do is we talk about issues that surround on our program about men's health and well-being, and in particular look at some of the topics that people are normally too afraid to discuss. And the inspiration behind it was, actually, this is a happy program, so let's not worry about the inspiration behind it. Let's just say that not enough subjects are spoken about. So
Mm.
I do that on a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday at the moment with Russ. And the main source of it is actually on Facebook. If you do a search for Facebook and you go to Men's Radio Station, that's where you'll find us. So thank you for the
Fantastic.
opportunity to plug.
No, but it's a good plug. Do you know what I mean? It's something that I think needs to be known more about, that there is this incredible vessel that is happening, and the fact that you shoot the breeze, that you do talk about the topics, like you say, that people don't feel they can do. So it's a really great thing that you're doing, and 3 times a week. Well done, PD. Really great work. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for saying so.
Yeah. So we have come to the end of our time here on Happy Talk, but
Is that it?
that is it. Yeah, that is it for now. Thank you to my old friend PD. It's been great to talk to you, and yes, we will meet in the new year. So it's now time for your happy happenings. This is the chance that you have to send me just good stuff that's happening in your life that I can share here on my podcast. And I've heard from Ruby, and she is a mum of 4, and they live out in Devon. And she said, we've had a pretty rocky year with regards to having to move. We moved from Sussex at the beginning of the year, and the home that we moved into, unfortunately, didn't work out for us. She didn't go into the details, but it didn't work out for her. So they had to move. They moved into rented accommodation, and that didn't work out either because they had a leak and the ceiling actually came through. So they had to move it into temporary accommodation, her and the 4 kids. This was all at the beginning of the whole lockdown situation. So she said it was just absolutely, absolutely awful. So they have had to wait while they lived in temporary accommodation for about 4 months or so. And they made the best of it because at least it was summertime. But they were just dying to get their hands on their own home and be settled in time for Christmas. And she's written to say that she's really pleased to report that a couple of weeks ago, they got a call from a friend who is unable to live in their home because they can't sell it at the moment, which is not good for them, but it's good for her because the house is available, and they're going to be able to move into it for at least the next 6 to 8 months or so, so at least they can settle. And they are really looking forward to Christmas. They've sent me some pictures, and the house is looking lovely. They've absolutely decked the halls. So to Ruby and your whole family, I hope you have a fantastic Christmas in your home, and I hope next year you get the permanent home of your dreams. So this is Happy Talk, and it is so good to hear from you. Thank you so much for your comments on Spotify and on YouTube. Keep them coming. Thank you so much, and spread the word. So yeah, this is what I do. Good news, good guests, no grief, and I'll see you again really soon.